Okay, we're back on live finally, and we're running into this issue, and I think I'm understand what is happening. So hopefully everyone can hear me now, right? I'm on there. Everyone can hear me. I sure hope so. Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah, very funny, honey. Yeah, I'm not sure why this has started happening. It seems to only happen on Sundays for some reason, and I just did a bandwidth check prior. Um, Jennifer says it's good now. Thank you. Perhaps next time, honey, put a note in there and ask someone to comment whether they can hear the audio. So we are back online now, and the audio is good now, and I'm not sure why that is happening, but I do believe we have a solution for it. And what it is that on Sundays, the amount of traffic on the internet skyrockets. And we're up here in Canada because we're a lot smaller. We have a limited supply of bandwidth out of the country. There's only actual a couple major internet pipelines out of Canada, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. So we are compensating for that, and we should have that solved for next weekend. But yeah, learning how to lip read. Exactly. And I really do apologize because it's quite frustrating, especially when you're trying to do a live meditation. So I do want to apologize about this morning's. The audio quality wasn't where we wanted it to be, and it kind of hitched and started for the first few minutes before it settled down. So we're going to work with YouTube and the service providers and get that ironed out during this next week so things remain smooth. Now, as far as the meditation itself went, if you attended the meditation, I am very curious about the feedback, whether you felt anything within the interior of your being. I do that Kundalini raising one. I used to do it every day, and I would like to get back in there. Oh, trust me, Jennifer, mind reading is not as fun as you think. I have been inside of some people's heads, and man, let me tell you, it's like being stuck in a jungle trying to get out. It really is. Some people keep some really interesting stuff tucked away in their minds, that's for sure. The purpose of the meditation and the reason why we're transitioning the Help Awaken side of things into meditative practices is, of course, meditation is one of it is actually the first and foremost way in which you reconnect with your higher self. It really is. Meditation brings your mind over time to a place of clearer focus, of one pointed concentration. And this is what we're really looking to do. You know, the mind in Buddhism, Buddha called it, the 10,000 things. And that was just a huge number. And what it meant is all of the illusion, we tend to grab onto it. We tend to grab onto pieces of the illusion, whether it's our sense of identity or a sense of who someone else should be or a sense of what we think should be going on or an object that we're particularly mesmerized with. We grab and we grab and we grab and we hold on and we cling. We cling to these objects. And in that clinging, in that constant, uncontrolled, unlooked at, uh, we don't pull apart our desires and honestly look at them. So what we do is we have a desire pop up at our head, and the desire is not for the real thing. The desire is not for the object. You know, the gentleman who's putting the final touches on the drywall in our basement, he'll be finished up tomorrow. He came here today to do another coat on the mud, and very soon we'll be able to put our basement back together. Looking forward to it. But he and I had a conversation outside before he left, and we were talking about a brand new car, an example. So you are looking for a feeling. You're not really looking for the car, but you go out and you buy this brand new car because you're expecting that this brand new car is going to do all these things for you. But at the end of the day, the car actually causes you pain. You know, the first day, week, month we have that vehicle, hello, Cindy, nice to see you too. Ah, you came in when the audio was fixed. We had another minute or two of audio problems, and I do believe I understand what's happening on, and it all has to do with the amount of available bandwidth, especially on a Sunday. And we're going to be dropping our streaming uh, bit rate just a tiny bit to compensate for that and pull that audio back in a lot clearer. I was not as happy with the audio this morning. It should have been much, much clearer than that, and I do apologize. Again, Cindy, since you're just popping in, would love to hear some feedback about the meditation this morning. What did you feel internally? Did you, whenever I do that meditation, I literally get a buzz up and down my spine. I really do. The entirety of my back and then radiating through into my being from the spine out, I can literally feel this electrifying energy just flow through my being, and I absolutely love it. It just, you can feel the cleansing effect of it as it releases those dissonant vibrations from our being. And this is the purpose and the idea. So moving forward, I want to start looking and experimenting with some different meditations. Some of them that I've done particularly in the past. I am thinking that our next meditation will be a Tonglen meditation, a meditation that helps generate compassion within our own being. Compassion not only for ourselves, but compassion for even what we perceive as our worst enemies. Compassion for those who we perceive as harming our environment and our humanity and our world. Those people need our compassion more than ever. So Kelly was going to ask a question about compassion, and hopefully she will put the question out there in plain writing so that everyone can benefit from the question, and then I will certainly answer the question. So I think we're going to do a Tonglen meditation next. And I will provide details prior to that, of course, for Wednesday evening. And the other thing is over time, I would really like to get the meditative practices to the point where, I'm going to actually do a once daily video as part of our usual meditations. And that will come. It is going to take a little time to get there. So I'm going to give Kelly a chance to drop her question in and we will answer it. And, the Buddha was talking about compassion today. We were watching the indie series, Buddha, and it is on Netflix, and it is a fantastic series. It runs, I don't know, 60 some odd episodes or so altogether, but it is they do take some dramatic license, I guess, in some parts of Buddha's story. But the actual story is very close to the history that we know about him, and it's just fantastic. And the characters do a fantastic job playing the roles that they do. And in the particular episode that we were watching today while we ate our lunch, and that's really the only time we watch television of some sort, is when we eat meals. We'll typically put something enlightening, something that offers some learning, and we will take advantage of that and then talk about it as we eat. So in this particular episode, the Buddha had come to a small community, and the Brahmins, who are the religious leaders, the religious caste in India at the time, convinced the people in this village to spread thorns all over the path. And then they taunt Buddha. And they say, well, if you want to come and beg in this village, you're going to have to walk over the thorns. Okay, the questions come out. So let's see here. I have asked about compassion many times, and there's been a question. What does it look like? End of the meditation, feeling perfectly. Sometimes felt it was trying too hard to keep up with your pace. Yeah, this is the thing. And I'll address this before we go back to the story, Cindy. When it comes to the meditation, you set your pace. Don't allow my pace to interfere with your own pace. It is simply the way the chakra dhyana meditation works is you intone each chakra 7 times with the mantra, and then you repeat Kundalini Arohanam 3 times, and then you return to the next chakra. And you can add color breathing into there too, where you actually breathe the color associated with the chakra. And those colors, again, have nothing to do with some sort of glowing ball in you. It is a representation of the density of the energy found at that nodal point. So your root chakra, for example, Muladhara, has a very low density vibration. It is that place, that nodal point, most connected with our material realm and material survival and the energies surrounding our survival. And that is why we find those colors coming into play. Um, and yes, do pick your own pace, your own inhaling, your own exhaling. Do not allow the sound of my chanting to do anything with you. You should really just do your own. And that's the thing. You don't really want to come back to reality. And in fact, the meditation is closer to reality. It's that busy mind when you're not meditation that's putting the blanket over reality. Meditation helps reveal more of that reality too. Jennifer says she did Tonglen at the Shambhala Center, and that is fantastic. Tonglen, or compassion generating meditation, is fantastic. And again, let's be clear. Please guide yourselves in the meditation. My point is to bring you to meditation, to offer a psychic realm where we all meet together. And I hold that energy space during the entire meditation. And we can all gather together there and experience meditation together and grow that circle of love between each other and the rest of the human race, all our brothers and sisters. And we will repeat that. Cindy, we're going to redo that meditation because I am not happy with the quality of it, and then I will delete the other one completely out. So maybe for next Sunday, we will redo that one, and Wednesday we will focus on a Tonglen meditation. Jennifer, I totally hear you. You know, the cats, they just have this thing where once they figure you're in the right energy state, they just have to interrupt it. It's and they're attracted to it too. You know, so you know a lot of times the cat will come and curl up in your lap when you're meditating, right? And they love being in that vibrational space and in the warmth of your being. They really do. So the Buddha was in this village, and we're going to return to our little story here about compassion. And they had placed thorns all over the path into the village, big, big thorns. And they were taunting Buddha, and they said, well, come on, if you're an enlightened being, I mean, you should be able to walk over these thorns if you want to come and beg here, if you want to get alms from our village. You're going to have to walk this thorny path. So Buddha did. He walked over the thorns, and they were piercing his feet, and blood was starting to flow out of his feet. And he still had that angelic smile on his face. And one man out of all the people watching, and he was part of the lowest caste in India, and those are known as the untouchables. They handle the dirty work, the urinal cleaning, the you know cleaning the crap out of the toilets, the dirty things that no one else wants to touch, the cutting of meat. Um, these sort of things were relegated to a caste in India, typically much darker skinned, and these people were not to be touched. It was believed in their religious system that to touch an untouchable would sully your being, would make you unclean in some way. So you can imagine these people never received love from other people outside of their own caste. Whenever they were in a public place, they were Garhen. Hey, that's a pretty neat name for a cat. Very close to Garhen, I must say. So this untouchable, that this person who could not be touched and was responsible for doing the dirty work, he couldn't bear what he saw happening. And he immediately started to sweep the thorns away and clear a path for Buddha. And all the other villagers, of course, mocked him. And Buddha came up to him and spoke to him and reached out and put his hand on his head. And the man shrank back because he had never been touched by anyone else in his entire life who was not also an untouchable. And he implored Buddha to not do that because Buddha would dirty himself by touching him. And Buddha explained that just as the sky protects and covers us all, and the sun provides warmth for every being, the earth, the food, the rain. Buddha explained that it is only us, in our ignorance, that creates separation between man and woman and child. That it is only us that completes separation between anything. Powerful, 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 powerful words. This man became a monk. This man was accepted by Buddha as a monk, and it was the first of its kind because up until that point in India, no untouchable would ever attain salvation, could ever attain nirvana. They were not allowed to study, they were not allowed to become monks. And Buddha did this. He made an untouchable a monk. And as he sat there with the rest of his monks, he said, we're going to be hated for this. And we're going to face a lot of strife for this. But it's the right thing to do. So, Kelly asked earlier about compassion, and, I understand exactly where she's coming from. And I have ran into this before. When I first returned to Canada, I wore my Buddhist robes for about a year and a half before I actually transitioned back to Western clothing. And I remember I was in Western clothing for one of the first times, and I was talking to a girl at the Shoppers Drug Mart, and the lady behind me, she says, well, it's really funny because I've watched a lot of TV shows and movies, and you don't look like a monk. I almost fell off the counter. So I asked her what a monk was supposed to look like. And according to her, a monk was supposed to be Asian and bald and dressed in orange all the time. And it's amazing how many people believe this about various aspects of the East. And yeah, I'll have to post a picture. I'll have to dig one up. There's actually a picture of me snuggling up with a Bengal tiger. We're having a snooze, and it is a monastery that the Buddhist monks actually raise tigers. and it is a beautiful, beautiful place in Thailand, and they have always 7 or 8 adult tigers that have been raised since they're babies, and you can go there, and in certain circumstances, and if they feel you have the right temperament and that you're in the right place, you can actually walk amongst these tigers freely and experience them up close, and it was quite the experience. So we're talking about compassion again and what compassion is, and of course we have this kind of movie-esque, TV-esque, you know, opinion of what compassion is. And I've always said this: compassion is that which serves the other the best. And the way you determine it is you see yourself standing in front of you. And then you ask yourself what you would say or teach or do to serve yourself the best, given the situation you find yourself in. Now, I know that sounds a little confusing, but what it really means is this. When I look at Kelly, and I look at the state of being that she's in, and I look at oh, Jennifer says she thinks she saw a documentary about that. Yeah, I'll post a little bit on Facebook about it over the next day or two about this monastery. If you want a place to take a holiday, then this will be one of the most amazing, rewarding holidays of your life. That's for sure. So when I look at Kelly, I don't see Kelly per se. I do, but what I do is I also see me when I was still at that level of thinking, when I was still at that level of consciousness, when I thought that way. And then I do my best to examine how I used to feel when I thought that way and what the issues were for me. And then based on what she's bringing to me, I respond out of how I would help myself, the things I would say to myself, the things I would do for myself in order to bring myself past that point. And that's how I deliver compassion. And no, sometimes it tears the butt out of ego. It really does. But and Kelly and I have talked about this, and I have said to her, here's my thing. If I see someone who I'm seeing as a younger or less conscious version of myself, and their behavior is causing them harm, the most compassionate thing I can do is offer them a way out of that behavior, to show them that there's a choice for them, to make them aware of what they're doing to themselves, and to offer a different path. Whether they choose to take that path is not up to me. They have free will. I will not interfere with that free will. Oh, that's what you say. You knew I had some wisdom. Well, there you go. Yeah, bald guy in orange robes, and then you're in trouble. I know, I get it. So, when we're going to be talking about compassion, when you really look at compassion, compassion is igniting the passion within yourself to better yourself. And you're bettering yourself through seeing yourself in everyone else. I say this over and over and over again. We really do teach what we need to learn. Every opportunity we have to express ourselves compassionately to another, to see ourselves in that other person, we have the opportunity to grow. And one of the hardest things to face is realizing that the things we see as problems in others are reflections of things within ourselves that we have yet to fully eradicate, yet to fully deal with. Now, how was it that the Buddha was able to become such a passionate being? And understand this, the Buddha is just like you and me. The Buddha is just a term that means enlightened one. And anybody is capable of being Buddha. Anybody is capable of being Christ. It's the truth. Don't ever let yourself be fooled otherwise. I just have to set off my alarm here, or turn it off. It's, oh look, my snooze is over. Time to wake up. So how did Buddha develop this compassion? How did Christ develop this compassion? Because they didn't always exercise that compassion. But after a certain point, it was fully entrenched within their being. And that moment was the realization that nothing can be separated from I. And nothing can be separated from the I that you are. All of this, we are that stardust. We are all the same beautiful consciousness. Every plant, every tree, every flowing drop of water, every leaf, every creature, every human being, every consciousness throughout the universe is all family, is all us. Where and there do we have the right, or can we foster a desire to do harm to another? And of course, it is us that we do the harm to. It really is. You know, another beautiful thing that Buddha said in this last episode was that, you know, holding anger towards someone or malice towards them is much like holding a burning hot coal. Your intention is to throw that burning hot coal onto them in your anger or in your malice. But keep in mind that you have already been burned. Again, another powerful example of what these negative emotional states do to our being. And this is why meditations like the chakra dhyana and Tonglen meditation are fantastic for not only releasing those negative and dissonant vibrations which we would hold in ourselves, a lot of times quite unconsciously, but also help to generate a new vibrational state, a vibrational state of love, a vibrational state of acceptance, a vibrational state of wrapping even our worst enemy in our perception in that blanket of love. You know, Buddha talked about this in a previous episode, but again, it is so true that we in our day-to-day ignorance miss the constant stream of communication from life, the constant flow of abundance, the constant flow of whispers in our ear. And it is all available to us when we stop looking with eyes that are clouded with our egoic judgments. You know, in one of the scenes, Buddha was meditating by the edge of the cliff and he was inducting some other monks, and a man came running and he was trying to throw himself off the cliff. And Buddha saved him. He grabbed his arm as the man went sailing off the cliff and pulled him back onto the edge of the cliff. And the man implored Buddha to let him kill himself. And Buddha said to him, "Why would you want to do this?" And the man spoke about how miserable the world was and how hateful people had become and how he saw no beauty anymore. And after Buddha calmed him down and the light of Buddha's presence had its effect on the man's mind and he was becoming peaceful, Buddha turned and showed him the view from that ledge. Yeah, I'm speaking directly from this Netflix series right now, mainly because no one's given any questions, and I didn't want things to get too boring. But this is a fantastic little series. It really is, and it's well worth you seeing. The lessons in it just keep coming. And when the man looked at the vista in front of him with awakened eyes, he saw the beauty of the earth. He saw the beauty even in the pain and the grief and the suffering that we would cause ourselves. And it's really funny because Buddha was at the same point too. That is what drove Siddhartha Gautama to leave his life as a prince. He saw suffering all around him. He saw the death and decay and sickness and the starving and those who did not have the opulence that he had. He saw what war did to people. And no matter what his father did to try and protect him, because of course, when Buddha was born, there was a prophecy that he would either be a great emperor or he would be a great enlightened being, an ascetic. And his father did everything he could to keep that from happening. But every single thing his father did was still serving that sea of consciousness. And it was still leading Buddha towards that path. Imagine wishing to find the end of grief and suffering to the point that you're willing to die in the process to save not only you, but to save every member of the human race. And then once you've achieved that, to dedicate yourself to spreading that message. And Cindy's absolutely right. And this is the thing, as I've said time and time again, the entirety of creation is speaking. Those who have ears to hear and eyes to see will hear and see far more out of the same thing than someone else. They really will. And we even see this again in this Buddha series where, after Buddha's attained enlightenment, he returns to Kapilavatthu, which is the kingdom from which he came. And he meets with all the kings, and everyone recognizes that he is no longer Siddhartha Gautama, but he is now Gautama Buddha. He's enlightened. There is a radiance about him, that there is an actual aura that projects off of him. And everyone sees it. Everyone. Even those who plotted against him. But his one brother, Devdutt, his elder brother, is so entrenched in his own ego, he sees only a threat to him getting to the crown. He does not see Buddha's enlightenment. He sees only his own darkness. Why? Because the more we awaken, the more we become a mirror. And this is the reason why every person who delves down the spiritual path will find themselves in a position where you will meet two types of people. Those people who either will love you and accept you wholly and be excited by your presence and energized by it and want to be around and want to communicate and want to share in that wisdom. And then you'll have those who hate you, or they're so much in fear of you that they think they hate you and they'll want nothing to do with you. And this is the polarizing state that we come to as our consciousness comes up. As our consciousness raises, our auras begin to project further and further and further out away from us. That energetic sense of you Yeah, and I'm going to speak to this actually. The boy. I call him the boy, and I call him boy child. And some of his relatives have gotten so upset by this. Well, his name is Danyon, you should be calling him Danyon. And I have this thing about names. I really do. And the reason being is it's way too identity. It becomes our identity just too easily. Well, that's who I am. I'm Danyon. I try and stay away from names. And there's a reason I do. When we name something, okay, what we do is we create a little box in our head, and it's part of that filing cabinet of our mind, and we put a little label on that, and we call that label Danyon, for sake of argument, the name of my stepson. Although, like I said, to me, he's just my kid. And in that box called Danyon, we're going to stuff all the things that ever happened that we experience with Danyon, or that we think about Danyon, or that we understand about Danyon. And when we schmuck everyone into those little boxes with labels, the next time we meet them, the next time we see them, we're always going back to that label box. Always going back there to see what's in it about what we think about them. I try and name nobody. That way, whenever he walks in the room, there's a fresh being standing there. A fresh being that I don't know. Why do I do that? I carry no preconceptions or misconceptions or ideas about what Danyon has been as compared to what he can choose to be right now. And that's why I drop names. It doesn't matter to me what you've done yesterday. It doesn't matter to me what you've done in the past. And I am not going to attach your actions to your name and stuff them in my filing cabinet. You are a brand new conscious spiritual being having a human experience every time you turn around. You are ever changing, ever evolving. Who am I to think that from the time of yesterday to today, that which you are is the same? And if I choose to see you as the same as in the past, what do I lose out on? Would God treat one of his children that way? I think not. I like what Cindy says. I see that happening as I talk more about awakening than angels on my page. Well, awakening and angels can go hand in hand. They really can. Absolutely. And labels have caused all our problems. And that label, we saw that in the caste system in India, where you have the untouchables. Okay, and if you're born, for example, in Japan, in the feudal days of Japan, if we go back into 1000 AD and 12, 13, 14, 1500, 1600, 1700 AD, it was in the 1700s that it began to change. But in the 1500s, for example, in Japan, your name was based on what you did. So if you were a cart bearer, then your name meant cart bearer, and your son's name would also be cart bearer because he would be locked into being a cart bearer. And we see this over and over again. And I always say, would our Creator do that? No, not at all. If we were always judged on what we did before, we'd all be in really big trouble. Thank goodness there's no judgment at all. There's just responsibility for our choices. And here's the beauty of it. You get to make fresh choices every now. No matter what you were yesterday, no matter what you've been for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of your life, you have the opportunity to change it all right now. And I will not take that opportunity away from you by stuffing you into a box or throwing a label on you, and then applying everything I think about that label to the person I see standing in front of me now. Yeah, Kelly raised 3 boys as well. Not 4, just 3. 14's 3 boys. I notice that we always have to say that, right? Because if you have girls, it's not near the trouble. But, if you have boys, you got to make sure you mention that. Because the boys are always the tricky ones. The girls tend to be a little better. As a stereotypical whole, they do. Kelly's asked an interesting question, and I know why she did. And here's the thing: there is a difference in the way we think. Okay, that feminine energy is that receptive, calm sea of consciousness. That's it's representative of that. And the masculine energy is that action, that actionable part of things. And we need each other. The feminine, what we would call the feminine and the masculine as energies, okay, not as sexual determination as to what sex they are, but as energies, that passive womb has all the energy of creation in it. And it is the actionable energy that causes the explosion of life, the explosion of creation. It takes that latent energy from the feminine and fashions it and combines with it, and then there's an explosion into this material realm. Yeah, I've heard that too, that girls can be trouble sometimes because they're sneaky. We're all guilty of sneaking around every once in a while, that's for sure. So where are we going with all this compassion, all this talk about, what we see in each other? Well, this is really one of the purposes of awakening. And awakening, each of us has a path, and no path can be judged. Please never judge the path someone else is on. And honestly, I'm guilty of this when it comes to churchgoers, because I they're good people, really. They're not bad people. I love what I see inside of them, but I am guilty of having difficulties with anything that creates separation on our planet, anything that creates an idea that you and I could ever be separate, that I could somehow have more than you in anything. It's not true. Don't ever buy it. We are all here under various levels of remembering. It is not a school. You remember a certain level, and every time your consciousness comes up, your remembering grows. That remembering gets larger and larger and larger. And I'll tell you a really funny one. When Kelly was young, she had always dreamt about marrying a preacher. And I kind of joked with her the other day, and I said, you know what? I guess I've kind of turned into one, haven't I? So in truth, you kind of did marry a preacher, although maybe I'm not preaching what she thought I was going to be preaching. And for a lot, I'm not. No hell and brimstone here, that's for sure. The only hell and brimstone is the hell and brimstone that we create ourselves. And again, this plays right into the compassion. We never fight hatred with hatred. You can't fight hatred. As a matter of fact, the minute you try to fight hatred, you become hate itself. There's only one way to stand up for something different, and that is whenever you meet that which you do not wish to see manifest in our world anymore, in our collective creation, stand up for its opposite. When you see someone belittled, be the one who raises them up. When you see someone who is harming another person, be the one who reaches out their hand. We teach not through our words alone. We teach not through what we talk to each other about. We teach through the actions that we take, through the choices that we make, through the compassion that we display. Words like compassion, words involving caring for others, involving serving humankind, those words are not nouns. Those words are verbs. They are actionable. And you don't have to come up with some big thing to do. You don't have to think of some big event to host. All you have to do is open your heart to see yourself in another. See when you were in the same state. See when you were under the same false conceptions. When you were suffering in the same way. And remember that even though now you may know that that suffering was not real, it certainly feels real to the person who is suffering. Offer them succor. Offer them a path that they may choose if they wish out of the suffering. Compassion in a nutshell is no longer enabling a behavior that is doing harm, but straightforwardly and with as much love and caring for the other as we can muster, showing them the error of their ways without judgment, reaffirming to them that they are loved and cared for, and then point to a new path. Yeah, I'm kind of straight like an arrow, you know, and years and years ago when I met the Dalai Lama, he I I actually called him on something. We were having a discussion through his interpreter, and he made a a grammatical blunder. I know it was, but I had to point out the the egoic undertone of his statement. And he looked me right in the eye and he turned to his interpreter and he talked for about a minute straight. And then his interpreter turned to me and said that His Holiness wishes to know that I have a that he felt I had a very sharp edge. And when I asked him to explain this a little further, he likened it to cutting through. He said that one of the gifts I had was to cut right through ego and expose the trunk. And then I'll gleefully sit there and chop it down for you, with you, if you wish. So yeah, being straight up, being honest is part of compassion. You know, if we see someone harming themselves, we are not being compassionate by allowing them to continue to harm themselves. We have to make them aware. You cannot stop them. We're not talking about stopping a person. We're talking about bringing awareness to them, bringing the opportunity for awareness, expanding their horizons so their choices can become better. You see, when we start trying to make choices for other people, they never last. Never. You force someone to go to Alcoholics Anonymous and they are never going to stop drinking. They will stop drinking when they choose to stop drinking, one way or the other. Our service to others must always look upon the other with no care for what the other may think about us. And I'll give you one last example before we wrap this up, okay? You have a close friend of yours, and she has got herself wrapped up with someone who you know is doing her harm. Yet in the state of mind she is more into the supposed love she feels from this person than she is seeing the harm that they are doing to her. And you love your friend, and you've had this girlfriend for most of your life. But the last time you tried to bring something up, She threatened to no longer be your friend if you spoke about it anymore. What do you do? How do you be the most compassionate towards your friend? My answer is you sit your friend down and you look your friend in the eye and you say to your friend, I love you, and if you never speak to me again, that's okay. But you need to know that what you're allowing to happen to your being, to the sovereign being you are, is breaking my heart because I see what it's doing to you. And you need to make choices for you. Or you can take the other road and you can say nothing. And you can continue to watch your friend suffer until one day, God forbid, something serious happens and your friend isn't suffering anymore. Now she's dead or in the hospital. Every day we have choices to make, and our choices involve some sort of sacrifice a lot of times. We sacrifice other people's opinions about us. We sacrifice what someone else may have to say about us. Why? Because it doesn't really matter anyways. What really matters is how we choose to be. Who do you choose to be? Well, I hope for a totally topicless and walking in here with not a single thing to talk about. Somehow I have managed to keep you all snoozing peacefully for the last 52 minutes. Much love as always, and I will commit to you this. If I have extra time when I can fit in some additional meditations, I'll throw them up on Facebook and let people know as far in advance as possible. Otherwise, looking forward to seeing you all Wednesday at 6 p.m. on the Help Awaken channel, where we will do a Tonglen meditation. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you. You are instrumental in my growth as well. And bless you all for it. Much love. Namaste to you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon. And may you start your week with peace and a sense of abundance and a sense of love for all of creation. Namaste.